I'm here with part 2 of my spontaneous Disney Day video. And in the first video I talked about my planning process and how I kind of got ready to do a spontaneous Disney Day. So it's kind of misleading because we didn't just show up at Magic Kingdom that day. But there was some planning involved, but for me it was pretty spontaneous. We only planned it a couple weeks out. So I wanted to pick up with this video of kind of how our day went and how we kind of allotted the time, what it was like. And like I said in my previous video, my family is used to going to Disney World in the winter months, and so we are used to cooler weather and lower crowds and just not that time of year. And so going into it, I had no idea what to expect. The first thing that I had to decide was which day to go on our Disney Day, and I kind of touched on this in the last video as well, but I just looked at our calendar of our days available, and then I went to Easy Walt Disney World, which it's easywdw.com. It might be .net. I'll link it below. But Josh is the writer there, and he does a fantastic job in giving you crowd calendars and predictions, and he just does really great walkthroughs of what it's like to enter the park. He does it, you know, he chronicles how he does it, and he's by himself and without kids. But I love reading his take on how he goes through the park and his suggestions on how to maximize your time. So whenever I'm needing to figure out what day to go to the park, I automatically go to his website and I look at his crowd calendar. So whenever I looked at the days available for our, of course this was June, so very high crowds and everyone goes in the summer, but I was looking through the recommended park days, and on the day that we were aiming to go, Magic Kingdom was a recommended park. And what he'll do is he'll lay out, you know, he'll give you basically a calendar spread, and then there's parks that are listed in red and parks that are listed in green. And just based on crowd trends and how people tend to do their vacation, Josh will recommend which park to go to. And so Magic Kingdom was in the green, so I was thinking that we had a better chance of maybe lower-ish crowds. It's all relative in the summer, but the crowd level was supposed to be an 8 out of 10, which is pretty high. Granted, anything's better than a 10 out of 10, but when I saw that, I knew that we just needed a plan to get there before park opening and really hit it hard, and that way the rest of the day would be just kind of fill in and what we could do to kind of stay out of the crowds. So that was the game plan going in. And while I'm thinking about it, I am using a blog post that I wrote for realmomsdisney.com, and I'm friends with Jenna, who started that website, and I share periodically just post about Disney World and my family's love of Disney there. So I wrote this post kind of recapping our day for Real Moms Disney, and I will link that below so you can go back and kind of read through the day chronologically. But I'm also using that for reference, so if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. But basically, like I shared in the last video, my plan was to get there really early before park opening and then just hit it hard. Well, we stayed off, what am I saying? We stayed off property, just a few miles from Disney World on the resort. And so it wasn't a Disney property hotel, but it was very, very close, and the rate was great. So we stayed in that hotel that night, and the game plan, the park was opening at, Magic Kingdom was opening at 8 a.m. So the plan was for us to get there at least 7:30. And so knowing how it typically goes in getting parked, and you know, and of course I hadn't done that in years. We usually stay on property, so we're usually taking the monorail or buses or whatever. So I had not driven, I mean, I had never driven it. My dad had driven it a few times, and I kind of vaguely remembered. But I knew that we needed to allow more time than we thought. So the goal was to leave at 6:45 a.m. from the hotel, and then we would drive to the Ticket and Transportation Center, and then from there you would take monorail or ferry into Magic Kingdom. So we were a little late, we're about 15 minutes late, and we left at 7 o'clock from our hotel. And long story short, my GPS, I typed in, Ticket and Transportation Center, immediately it popped up like, oh, I know exactly where that is. So I tapped on it. Well, we took the scenic route to get to the ticket and transportation center, to the point that I was pretty much feeling like I was on a behind the scenes tour of Disney corporate. And we were driving around. Of course, I'm just like, because, I'm wanting to get there and park and have plenty of time and cushion. And we were just driving around, and like my mom and my sisters were looking at around. We were like, what is going on? Where are we? And even they agreed. Like, it was just so confusing the way, like, my GPS was just taking me crazy places. And so I don't even know how to tell you to avoid that, but it was absolutely crazy. And finally, I just kind of finagled my way into the Magic Kingdom parking lot. I don't even know how. But we parked, and by this point, I'm trying to remember what time it was. It was probably at least 7:30 by this point. And we were still really early, compared to the rest of the crowds, but we parked, and the monorails were not running. I don't know if it was just that morning they were down, or if they just didn't start running them yet. So we had to take the ferry, and it felt so crowded already. I was so worried, and like there was a ton of people around us, and I was just like, oh, this is just going to be the longest day. But we were so excited, and we could see the castle in the background, and so we got on the ferry and had our 2 strollers. We had Evie and Liam, my 6 and my almost 5-year-old, in single strollers, so we could split up if needed. Each of us had a stroller, and I would absolutely do that again, to have each of them in separate strollers. Even at that age, I think they need to be in strollers. So we started out, we got to the Magic Kingdom. By the time we got to the front gate, it was right at 8 a.m. And if you know anything about Magic Kingdom, they usually start the welcome show about 15 minutes prior to opening. And they usually let people into the park about, I would say, 5 minutes before official opening time, 5 to even 8 minutes before opening time. So, of course, I saw that people were already in the park, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, like, we're already behind the curve. And so we walk in, and we headed straight to Fantasyland. And I know this video is all over the place, but just bear with me. But the plan, we knew, having the young kids with us, and this is just me, my mom, and my sisters anyway, that the focus was going to be on Fantasyland, young rides, no roller coasters. So that really eliminated a lot of the planning stress, was just knowing that we were focusing on the kids, and that's what we enjoy anyway. So we weren't trying to please like my husband or my dad or my brothers or my brother who loves, the bigger rides. So we headed straight into Fantasyland, and this was, like I said, right at about 8 o'clock a.m. And we were headed down Main Street, and my sisters, we realized we were so stupid. We didn't eat anything for breakfast. We were hurrying out the hotel. And so my sisters really wanted to stop and get a little bite to eat. And of course, I was just like, like so worried about it. But we stopped right in the Starbucks on Main Street. And of course, it was empty because no one's in there that early, right as park opens. And they grabbed, we grabbed like a croissant, some pastries, coffee, whatever. And I was thinking, oh gosh, like we're behind the curve. And but we grabbed that from Starbucks, and we're walking along, and we make it into Fantasyland, and it's empty. And I could not believe it, because that's typically what we experience when we go in the winter and we get there before park opening. And it was empty, and we just went around. The first thing that we hit was Peter Pan. And if you have kids, and if your focus is making sure they get the best experience or whatever, then you absolutely need to start with Peter Pan. That is the most popular Fantasyland ride. That, not New Fantasyland, just that older Fantasyland section. That is the most popular ride. And oh my gosh, like by mid to late morning and afternoon, it is just, the line is so long. So that's the first thing we did. We went to Peter Pan. And what was so fun is that right after we had left our last trip last January, they had opened up the brand new queue, the brand new waiting area, interactive with Peter Pan. And it's not the character Peter Pan, but it's interactive in the sense that you walk through like the Darling Nursery, and you get to do so many fun little things. And so my kids hadn't gotten to see it, and neither had I, and we were just so excited. And we got to walk through literally empty. No one was there, and we got to do all the little fun things, and we made our way, to the ride. And from there, we just did, I'm looking at my notes, but we did all the Fantasyland stuff. Winnie the Pooh, I want to say we did Under the Sea, Little Mermaid. We did all of all of the Fantasyland stuff. Anything that we knew that we wanted to hit for sure, we did right at the opening. And that's my biggest tip for anybody is, cross off your must-dos like first thing. Unless you have a fast pass for later in the day, then you need to not tarry whenever you are there that morning. We hit Peter Pan. I'm looking around my list. We did Small World, Winnie the Pooh, the Barnstormer little roller coaster, Dumbo, Under the Sea with Ariel, and no waiting for any of those. I mean, we were knocking it out. And I promise you, I think two things. People do not show up at park opening. Literally, the massive humanity at Disney World shows up, I think, around 10 a.m. I really think that that's the hour that it just goes, like crowds go crazy. But, I mean, you have no crowds around you, ever. I don't want to say make blanket statements, but I would be shocked if you got to Disney at park opening, and you didn't have a fair amount of free reign wherever you wanted to go in the morning. So after we did all of our Fantasyland stuff, we had an early lunch at Columbia Harbor House. And that's one of my favorite quick service. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite quick service? What's your favorite, counter service, whatever. I love Columbia Harbor House and Pinocchio Village House. I love the atmosphere in both of those, and I feel like the menus are less, relatively speaking, are less like amusement park food. Columbia Harbor House is like New England, like they've got like a lobster roll, they've got fried shrimp and just breaded fish, and it's really good. I like it. And then Pinocchio Village House has like flatbreads. They changed their menu in recent years, but they've got really good flatbreads, and it's still your typical Disney quick service food, but I mainly just love the atmosphere. I just think it's cute. And so we ate lunch at Columbia Harbor House, and then after we had lunch, that was around 10:45 a.m., 11 a.m. latest. We had lunch, and then right after that, we headed to Adventureland. Excuse me. And we did the Tiki Room, which is air conditioned. It's always good to know. And then we did our first pass, which was the Jungle Cruise. And I touched on this in my last video, but I chose my fast passes based on where I knew we would not be in the morning. So all of our, we did all of our Fantasyland stuff, and I knew we wouldn't make it over to like Adventureland, Tomorrowland that morning, early in the morning. So I did our fast passes there in those other lands. So we did the Jungle Cruise on Fast Pass, which I highly recommend for Fast Pass. It just gets really crowded, really hot when you're waiting. So that was great. We did that, and even with Fast Pass, we had to wait about 15 minutes for that. That's how crowded it gets, and that shows just the crowd level. It just goes straight up, starting about 10:30 a.m. So then we did Feeler Magic, which is back in Fantasyland. It's a 3D show. Absolutely love it. Do not miss it. It's just what Disney does best. And that's air conditioned again. Then we repeated Peter Pan with our Fast Pass because the kids love it. I love it. So we did it again, and we used our Fast Pass. And you bypass the interactive queue. When you use Fast Pass on these certain rides that have like really fun waiting queues, the whole point of the Fast Pass is that you're skipping the queue. So I'm really glad that we saw the interactive part of Peter Pan that morning, because then we just used our Fast Pass, went right through, did the ride, and it was great. The lines in Fantasyland were so long by this point. I mean, everything was just swamped. And I was definitely starting to see the 8 out of 10 crowd level. So then we walked by Enchanted Tales of Belle, which was not on my plan initially, because all it is really is just watching like little kids act out the story of Beauty and the Beast, and Belle is there as a character, and so it's kind of fun to see her, I guess, but I consider it like not fantastic. And to me, it was just kind of like we could skip it, we could take it or leave it. So as we walked by, the wait was 25 minutes, which is very low for that ride, especially at that time of day. It was, you know, after lunch at this point, maybe 1 p.m., 2 p.m.-ish. And so it was 25 minutes, and usually you're looking at like at least a 60-minute wait, 45 to 60-minute wait for that. So we jumped on it, and the wait is in the shade. It was still kind of getting warm then, and so we took the opportunity. They have got drinking fountains in that line, so we refreshed our cool towels, and so we did that, and it was great. Okay, so after we did Enchanted Tales with Belle, we headed over into Tomorrowland, and that's where there's a lot of good, in my opinion, like resting, kind of take a load off kind of rides. We did, and again I'm referencing my phone, we did Carousel of Progress, which is air conditioned, and it's one of my favorite rides in all of Disney World. We did the People Mover, which is also known as the Tomorrowland Transit Authority, which it's People Mover all the way. But you sit and you just go around and you just look at Tomorrowland, and it's one of my favorite things ever. It was a great time for us to rest our feet and just sit back, and came at a great time of the day. And then we used our Buzz Lightyear Fast Pass. And again, that was one of those that I planned because I knew we couldn't make it all the way over to Tomorrowland in the morning. And so we did Buzz Lightyear, and that was great. So by 3:30 p.m., after getting there at 8, by 3:30 p.m., we had completed every single thing that we wanted to do. And I had printed out, you know, my plan on a Word document, and I was just like, we done it. We did everything. And it worked perfectly because by 3:30, we were just able to kind of chill, and we could repeat some things we wanted to, but we could not believe that on such a hot day with such a high crowd, that we literally waited, I think at maximum, I'm trying to see if I wrote it down. Yeah, I think the maximum wait that we had was Enchanted Tales with Belle at about 25 minutes. And it was just amazing. I could not believe it. It gave me so much encouragement, I guess. I don't know. Like, for families that are doing this in the summer, like, you can do this. You just need to plan ahead and really prioritize. This would especially be great if you had multiple days in Magic Kingdom. I mean, you could focus on the kids one morning, and then, you know, roller coasters, adults, you know, the next morning. And so there's so many things that you can do and accomplish whenever you get there before the rest of the crowds. And that is my biggest thing. That this is proof that we went in the heat peak of summer, and we had almost no waiting. And we got to see everything. And so obviously Fast Pass is a big part of that, and I highly recommend doing whatever you can to reserve your Fast Passes as early as you can. And again, we weren't doing anything like Meet Elsa Anna, we weren't doing anything like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train that's real popular. So these were just kind of classic, like, must-dos for us, and we make so many trips to Disney that it was just like a bonus trip for us. And so it was just kind of fun to do our favorites, and it wasn't this giant stressful thing of like, we must see and do everything. And there's no way that you can do that in one day at Magic Kingdom. You just can't. So you had to prioritize, and that's what we did. And it was amazing from 8 to 3:30. And that included, you know, a lunch break, and I think maybe even a snack break in there at some point. But right after we finished all of our stuff at 3:30, we went onto Main Street, and we're just doing like some browsing in the shops, and I wanted to get my Mickey hat. Hang on. This is my souvenir. And so after we got our souvenirs, we were in the candy, I guess it's the Candy Factory. Is that what it's called? Candy shop. And right around that time, this torrential downpour just like came in. And a side note about rain at Disney World. In Florida, you are going to see a ton of rain. Daily, there's going to be a little shower here and there probably. But the biggest thing that people don't know is that typically in Florida, it passes just as quickly as it comes. Like it'll just drop out of the sky just as quickly, it will go away. And most people leave the park or they freak out or whatever, and that's the great time to take advantage of people leaving because of the rain and go do a ton of rides with hardly any waits. So there's a tip. But we knew that because we go to Disney World a lot, and we'd also lived in Florida for a while, years ago. And so when the rain started, we were like, oh, no big deal, whatever. Well, we looked at the radar on our phones, and we were like, this does not look like it's going to be a quick one. And we knew that we had like a 2-hour drive back to our condo at the beach in Jacksonville Beach. And so we just decided to call it a day. And I really didn't think we'd do that. I thought that we would be there till at least dinner, and eat at like Pinocchio Village House. And so it surprised me that we called it, but I was like, you know what, we've done everything. And it's literally like thunderstorming with lightning, and they start to shut things down when it does that. And of course they open things right back up, after the lightning is passed. But we just maxed out, I think, our day, and the kids were starting to get a little tired. And normally if we were on a long vacation at Disney, we would go do a break like midday at our hotel and then come back for the evening. But since we weren't at a hotel that day, we were just there for the day, we decided to call it. And so we braved the thunderstorm. I did bring ponchos, always bring ponchos, always bring ponchos. But we put those on and we went to the parking trams, and literally blowing rain was just everywhere. And I had to share this, what's so funny, this is so my son. Liam had, fought a nap all day. He really needed a nap, really bad. And but he wouldn't fall asleep, too engaged. Well, right in the, like, as we were walking to the parking trams and like taking the monorail to the ticket and transportation center, he's out like a light. And so we unload him. He's dead weight, of course. And so me and my mom and my sisters are like lugging him all over the place. And he sleeps through the entire thing. He sleeps through the parking tram, which are open sides, okay? So torrential rain is like coming in, and we're like, covering up, and he's just, out like a light. And we just had to laugh. But we got everyone, and right as we were getting to our car, it kind of cleared, a little bit. And so we got in the car and drove home, and we just couldn't believe the great day that we had. And it was such a wonderful time together. It was unexpected. We didn't expect to be able to do Disney. It's a little bit until our next trip. And it was just such a wonderful day. And I don't even know that I gave any majorly helpful things in this video. I just kind of talked through, like what our day was. I love this hat so much. But anyway, I hope that it just kind of helped you to hear maybe how a day went when you didn't plan for a whole year in advance. And I think sometimes you can look at people who are like Disney people, like me, who love to plan. I really enjoy that process. And sometimes I think if you're not wired that way, you can look at it and be like, oh my gosh, like our Disney vacation is going to be horrible. And, you can worry that it's not going to be enjoyable, or that you're going to be having to wait for 3 hours for everything. And that's not true. We're proof that 3 weeks out, we decided to go to Magic Kingdom, and we did it. And it was a wonderful day. We wore the perfect things. Like I showed, if you want to know what I wore, for way more detail on that, you can go to my previous video about that. But it was the perfect outfit. I was cool. I was comfortable. We used our cool towels and our fans, but overall, the way that we planned the day, the heat of the day really didn't spike until we were ready to do all the air-conditioned things in the afternoon. And so we were never out in extended heat for very long at all. And so it just proves that if you take a little bit of time just to think through your day and plan, I recommend, again, following one of Josh's touring plans on Easy WDW, Easy Walt Disney World, and I cannot remember if it's .com or .net. I'll put it right there below. But he is awesome, and I love in his write-ups, he's so funny. And if you read through his whole write-ups, like he just sneaks humor in there that's dry and witty and just really funny. And so using something like that, a resource just to give you kind of a loose outline of what you should aim for, is really helpful, and I really think that you can have a great day and you don't have to do all the bells and whistles of detailed planning. Of course it helps, but you can still have an awesome day, and we did, and it was such a fun time. So if you have any questions about Disney, if you want to see any more Disney type videos, or if you are just needing some help and knowing where to start planning, then I'm not a Disney agent, I'm not a Disney travel agent. I have friends that are, but I'm not one of them. I just really enjoy doing this for my family, and so I encourage you to comment down below and you can ask me any questions you have, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.